All right, my name is Hammonds, and this is my restorative justice workshop. So what is restorative justice? Restorative justice is a value-based process in which all parties involved in the offense work together to resolve and how to deal with the incident and create a standard of behavior that will be sustainable in the future. And then the end goal is to obtain a balanced focus on the victims, offenders, and other members of the community about wrongdoing that has occurred. Together identify the offenses, needs of those involved, and the obligations needed in order to make things right. And so there are 5 key principles to restorative justice. The first one is respect. Respect is the core of all restorative practices. It is achieved through taking on others' perspectives. The second is responsibility. Taking responsibility or owning the part that you played in the problem. The third is repair. Make a plan to repair the harm to the greatest extent that can be done. And then the fourth is relationship, making it right with the other person or the community. And then the last but not least is reintegration, and that is accepting back the offender or those that were alienated back into the group or school in this case. And so there are 3 requirements in order to successfully resolve the wrongdoing. First is the wrongdoer of the act must be acknowledged by all those involved. Relationships need to be repaired, so between those 2 people, that relationship must be repaired. Future intentions need to be addressed. So the reasons to use restorative practices, reparation of harm for the victims, offenders, and the community, and then empathy and accountability. This creates opportunities for change and recognizes that everyone is interconnected. Respect, responsibility, repair, relationship, and reintegration, again, are the key principles of restorative justice. Inclusive and collaborative. This allows for interaction by all involved to resolve the conflict. And then the focus is on people and relationship rather than the rules and institutions. So restorative practice in schools, there are 5 different interventions that take place. One is empathetic listening. Circles is another, conferencing, mediation or conflict resolution, intentional reintegration following suspension. And the first we'll talk about is empathetic listening. Empathetic listening is a structured listening and questioning technique that allows you to develop and enhance relationships with a stronger understanding of what is being conveyed, both intentionally and emotionally. So this encourages mutual respect and trust, helps to accurately understand the message, and helps to provide an appropriate response between the 2. And then the other intervention that they have is circles. Circles allow each person to have the ability to express their feelings about the situation. This concerns and the concerns and personal perspective in a safe environment. So this allows, again, within circles, the information that is being given is actually confidential. So another thing is it is an effective tool because it allows the future prevention and de-escalation tools to be discussed. And the emphasis of circles is it teaches how to respect and value each person as an individual. And then there are different types of circles. There are beginning and end of day circles, peacemaking circles, classroom norm circles, academic goal circles, behavior issue circles, proactive and formal conferencing circles. So the opportunities for conferencing using restorative justice is it teaches restorative justice skills to students and staff, classroom role plays, truancy, pre-return to class after visit to the office, or before or after school, or before or after in-school suspension. And then after suspension, expulsion, re-entry into the school district. So another is mediation or conflict resolution. This is used most often by mediators if there is joint responsibility acknowledged by both parties. The people involved in the conflict have complete decision-making power over the agreement or solution to the problem. The mediation is confidential, and then the mediation needs to be voluntary and include a neutral third party who helps to resolve the situation peacefully and to reach a win-win solution. So there are steps for the mediation or conferencing, and this is like kind of the pre-conference intake, which they fill out kind of before, or the pre-steps before the mediation conferencing. And so the mediator meets with each participant individually in order to gain information about the conflict. Again, it is confidential. It helps to build rapport with the mediator, and the review of this process is with each person. The student must be willing to take responsibility for their part, and the student must also be willing to make the situation better. And the most important part in this is the student must be willing to use respectful communication. So again, during the pre-conference, the mediator lets the participants know what is going to happen during the mediation. This is a way for a positive solution and a win-win to happen, just by exploring both sides. You are to remind the participants that this is voluntary and suspension will be decreased if they participate. And then this is kind of the rap sheet or the action plan, and they kind of just fill this out, and within this it says what actually happened and what was your part, who was directly and indirectly affected and or harmed, how are they affected, who was responsible, and then down here they kind of just say how will this be done. So the process, as it goes on, the mediator searches for core issues during the storytelling phase. The issues are discussed so that the participants are able to see the bigger picture in order to find a solution that will resolve the conflict. Discovering the real issues is important in order to resolve the situation. So then down here is some sample-ended, open-ended questions that the mediator would ask. It is, what is the problem? What do you want to get out of the mediation? And why is this important to you? And then at the end, the mediator asks all participants to establish an end goal that they'd like to meet. And so during the mediation and or conflict resolution, the mediator reads these rules and has participants give a thumbs up or thumbs down. And if there's a thumbs down, the situation is not ready to be mediated. So these ground rules are, do you agree to not interrupt and let the other person finish speaking? Do you agree to be respectful of the other person's perspective? Do you agree to answer questions? Do you agree to be honest? Do you agree to work on solving the problem? And last but not least, do you agree to keep the discussions confidential? And so this is the process of the face-to-face meeting preparation, and this is a kind of a form of what they'd fill out. And it's kind of just what they focus on of when it happened and the effects it had. And then they kind of just fill out these questions, just kind of before, just to help them prepare and what to expect. And then this is the school community impact statement. This is kind of just about how it affected you and others and the people around you or your community, or in this case, the institution. And then this is the agreement to mediate. This is kind of like what the students would fill out if they were to, like they'd go for, I guess, to get the mediation. So in this case, I oversaw one, and both of those students had to agree to be mediated in order for that to happen and take place. So then brainstorming solutions. Participants make a list of possible solutions, and the mediator helps the participants to create a final solution by using open-ended questions that we saw earlier to resolve those issues. And then again, some more of these open-ended questions are, what can be done to repair the harm and who is responsible for repairing the harm? What can be done to rebuild trust and respect? And then what needs to happen to put this situation in the past? The mediator will ask 3 questions to help participants get ideas for resolution agreement. And some of these are, what do you want from this meeting? What suggestions do you have that would help to solve this situation? And what suggestions do you have to help everyone feel safe? So the mediator really asks these participants which ideas that they agree with, and erase the ideas that they do not agree with. So this again kind of helps the end game of just kind of getting them on the same page and kind of building trust and respect for each other again. So then once the agreement is done, usually it is written, but it can also be verbal. The mediator writes the agreement word for word, and the mediator will add information about what to do if the agreement does not work. The agreement usually ends with some kind of wording like congratulations on reaching a mutual agreement. And then here's the final restorative agreement, and this is kind of just the summary of what happened and then what their agreement would be for the future. And then here's a parent letter home after the conflict, so this is kind of just like a letter that is sent home after they apply for the restorative justice conflict resolution. And then last but not least is making an effective apology letter, and this is kind of just an apology letter of like they kind of look back at themselves and just kind of look at their behavior and how they're responsible for the incident. And then for the follow-up, there's one last thing at the end is a follow-up, and this is a confidential check-in with participants at a later date. Use this follow-up to remind participants of the agreement and make sure that it is still working. Make sure to praise their success at using their agreement. And then this is kind of the questionnaire of whether they've been agreeing or not to their agreement. And then here's a video of a restorative justice case.
Sorry, pause it for a second. Sorry, you have. Oh, sorry. Trying to. Okay, hold on.
Well, now I'm curious, like,
Did you go ahead and push play, Jason?
no, we don't, but, okay, so.
Is that connected to your projector?
I just put it over. No?
Mm-mm.
I go to the speaker on the right hand side.
Oh, yeah, on the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, down here.
Mm-hmm.
Or does it say for my speakers?
Wait, are you controlling it?
Not anymore.
Okay. This right here?
Mm-hmm.
That's the calendar.
Mm-hmm. That, those three buttons maybe?
No, that's what I was trying to do over here, but let me control it for a second. Where am I at? I gotta get back over.
What time are we at anyway?
Oh, we still have 20 minutes.
You still have time.
We have 30 minutes to.
I don't know why it's not.
I've got a beef.
Yeah, go there, click on that, and now go to
Exit.
exit.
I did.
Yeah,
We do a
now,
lot of that.
play again.
Oh, push play, Kason.
Let me give it a few minutes to warm up.
In Aurora, Colorado, Principal Matthew Willis welcomes the recent changes at Hinckley High School, where 75% of the 2,000-plus students qualify for free and reduced meals. Willis says student fights are down and respect among classmates is up.
Last year, we had a 48% reduction in out-of-school suspensions when it comes to physical altercations between students. In 2007-8, we had approximately 263 physical altercations, and so far for this year, we've only had 31 physical altercations.
So good morning, thank you for being here.
The turnaround, he says, began when Hinckley High started using a form of discipline called restorative justice.
Every single year over the last 3 full years that we've been doing restorative justice, you see significant declines in defiance, disobedience, and use of profanity.
This is called a talking circle, so when we have problems in the school, we come together and talk about it.
Now, when a minor altercation does occur, students, parents, and the dean face each other in a restorative circle.
Restorative is that you bring back the kids, if it's student with student, or if it's student with staff, you restore the relationship. So if there's conflict or wrongdoing, we come together and we talk about it and we try to heal the harm that was caused from the incident. So thank you for everything you said so far, and now
Dean of Students Bonnie Martinez facilitates.
we speak openly and honestly, but with respect.
On the day we visited, 2 sophomore girls caught up in a physical fight were brought to a circle with their parents instead of being suspended.
So this is our talking stick, so who's ever holding this is the ones talking and everyone else is listening. You say what happened from your point of view, and you say what happened from your point of view. And sometimes we don't always agree on all the facts or whatever.
She called me the B word, and then we just started fighting.
That's kind of a layer of you. She say to be honest, and I think you have to be honest.
I was here, and she come walking to me, and so she started again.
Students are asked to talk about the harm their actions may have caused, and Martinez requires everyone to sign an agreement.
What do you take responsibility for? What do you think we could do to heal the harm that was caused?
I'm sorry for having these problems that we've been having, and I don't want it to happen again.
Okay, you're not gonna be enemies, but you're gonna treat others with respect. That, to some people, may be viewed as a soft discipline, especially if you look at the Western culture. You know, we're about war and violence, we're not about peace and harmony. But however, for those girls to come together and for their families to come together and talk about it and to really, you know, to express truly what happened, how did it affect me and others, what am I responsible for and how do I solve it? That's deeper than just writing up paperwork and one person goes their way and the other person goes their way and nothing was ever communicated.
What do we know about anger? It's a secondary feeling. What is underneath anger? A lot of deeper emotions and feelings.
At Hinckley, the restorative justice circles go beyond the dean's office. Peer mentoring classes use role-playing to teach students how to conduct circles on their own. How does it make you feel?
It pisses me off that he's spreading rumors about me, but I didn't do nothing.
Sophomore Nice Smith thinks the circles bring better results than suspension.
It used to be like you just get sent home for 5 days, but that doesn't resolve nothing. You just sit there and you come back with the same anger.
When teachers don't resolve the harm by doing restorative justice, then that conflict is always there. And usually what'll happen is kids will just stay angry. And I don't like that teacher, and so I don't care what you say, and they'll just disrupt.
I'm deeply sorry about what's going on.
Models like Hinckley's have gained national attention after the Obama administration in January directed school districts to scrap overly zealous zero-tolerance policies that led to automatic suspensions and criminal records. Following such policies, the official said, impacted minorities at higher rates. Colorado's legislature eliminated zero tolerance in schools in 2012.
The ideas of traditional discipline don't exist anymore. When in the old days, when a student or a kid got into trouble, we would spank them. And we moved away from spanking because it no longer met the values of our society. The same is true with the traditional discipline where it's all about punishment. It's not about restoring relationships. It's not about taking responsibility for your actions. It's about punishment. So that no longer fits the society of our future. What fits the society of our future is people coming together and working and solving problems together.
Gracias. Mucho gusto. Gracias.
And while Colorado is now ahead of the national movement, the state actually played a role in the making of zero-tolerance policies after the 1999 shootings at Columbine High School.
Anytime you're in a school, you've got all these stakeholders.
Sarah Park is the Director of Education for the Denver Foundation, one of the sponsors of Hinckley's Restorative Justice Program.
In Colorado, our zero tolerance law was really in response to Columbine. And we were scared. We were all heartbroken. We were terrified, and we wanted to make sure kids were safe. And so we thought, well, let's do this. Let's make clear that this is non-negotiable. And that's really where the intention around zero tolerance came from. Unfortunately, the way it played out was a more negative educational outcome. You can't learn if you're not there. And they also, there's studies linking suspension to incarcerations, and it's much more likely that a kid is suspended, repeatedly suspended, that they'll end up in jail. And it's much more likely that if they're suspended even once in 9th grade, they're more likely to drop out.
Aurora police officer Jake Bunch, who's assigned to Hinckley High School, says social media has accelerated his need to rely on personal connections that can come from restorative justice.
With like Facebook and Twitter, information just spreads so quickly now that, you know, it's hard to stay on top of it because the kids know about something that's going to go down way before we could ever know. If kids, you know, if I build that relationship with them and they know they can come talk to me before it becomes a violent issue, it ties right in with restorative justice.
What is the role of an individual in society?
Not all conflicts can be resolved through restorative circles. Even supporters see the process as one of many approaches. And skeptics question if stopping down class time for circles limits learning. Test scores at Hinckley High School hover below the state average. For his part, Principal Willis remains a strong believer in the approach and is sharing the school's method with districts across the state.
I hope this workshop helped you guys better understand restorative justice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I thought I'd say